हाल मुरीदां दा कहना मित्र प्यारे नूं हाल मुरीदां दा कहना मित्र प्यारे हाल मुरीदां दा कहना मित्र प्यारे हाल मुरीदां दा कहना तुझ बिन रोग रजाइयां दा ओढ़ण नाग निवासां दे रहना तुझ बिन रोग रजाइयां दा ओढ़ण नाग निवासां दे रहना तुझ बिन रोग रजाइयां दा ओढ़ण नाग निवासां दे रहना मित्र प्यारे हाल मुरीदां दा कहना मित्र प्यारे हाल मुरीदां दा कहना सूल सुराही खंजर प्याला बिंग कसाइयां दा सहना सूल सुराही खंजर प्याला बिंग कसाइयां दा सहना सूल सुराही खंजर प्याला बिंग कसाइयां दा सहना मित्र प्यारे हाल मुरीदां दा कहना मित्र प्यारे हाल मुरीदां
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਤਨਾਸਰੀ ਮਹੱਲਾ ਪੰਜਵਾਂ। ਜਾ ਕੋ ਹਰ ਰੰਗ ਲਾਗੋ ਇਸ ਜੁਗ ਮਹਿ ਸੋ ਕਹੀਅਤ ਹੈ ਸੂਰਾ ਆਤਮ ਜਣੈ ਸਗਲ ਵਸਤਾ ਕੈ ਜਾ ਕਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਪੂਰਾ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਗਾਈਐ ਆਤਮ ਰੰਗ ਸਰਣੀ ਪਾਵਨ ਨਾਮ ਧਿਆਵਨ ਸਹਜ ਸਮਾਵਨ ਸੰਗ ਰਹਾਉ ਜਨ ਕੇ ਚਰਨ ਵਸ ਹੈ ਮੇਰੇ ਹੀਰੇ ਸੰਗ ਪੁਨੀਤਾ ਦੇਹੀ ਜਨ ਕੀ ਧੂਰ ਦੇਹੋ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਨਿਧ ਨਾਨਕ ਕੈ ਸੁਖ ਏਹੀ। ਗਿਆਨ ਧਿਆਨ ਕਿਛ ਕਰਮ ਨਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਸਾਰ ਨਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ। ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ done beyond kirpa for giving us this time to be sitting in the charan. ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਰਾਜਾਨ ਰਾਜ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦਾ ਪਾਨਾਨ ਪਾਨ ਦੇਵਾਨ ਦੇਵ ਉਪਮਾ ਮਹਾਨ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਪਾਵਨ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਬਾਣੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਬਾਣੀ we just all listen to ਜਾ ਕੋ ਹਰ ਰੰਗ ਲਾਗੋ ਇਸ ਜੁਗ ਮਹਿ ਸੋ ਕਹੀਅਤ ਹੈ ਸੂਰਾ। ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ in this ਬਾਣੀ is saying that ਜਾ ਕੋ ਹਰ ਰੰਗ ਲਾਗੋ ਇਸ ਜੁਗ ਮਹਿ। Is Jog is referring to during this time, the time that we are passing through now. Is Jog referring to Guru Sahib Ji saying during this time of Kal Jug. Kal Jug meaning that time of Kal, that time of darkness. During that time when there's so many things that are against us now. There is so many things that are actually stopping us from walking on that path of truth. Whilst being so difficult and having so many challenges, Mal saying Jako har rang lago is jug mein. But those that even during this time and having so many challenges in their life and having so many things that are actually becoming a rukawat for them, that are actually stopping them from walking forward, taking that path that Guru Sahib Ji Sache Paatshah is giving to us. Paatshah say, but those that have actually risen above that, they said they are the true warriors, those that have still fallen in love with the path of truth, even during this time when we have so many things that are trying to stop us. Maharaj is saying to us, they're saying that those people, they said they are the true warriors in this age. Then Maharaj said that Atam Jina Sagal Avastaka Jaka Satguru Pura. Maharaj is saying that those that have got the Pura, the complete perfect Guru behind them, what will they be able to do? Atam Jina, they'll be able to have victory over their mind. And what it means to have victory over their mind means that they'll be able to fight their mind, that negativity, those thoughts that come within our mind that stop us from embracing that path that Guru Sahib Ji is laying out for us. Embracing that path of truth. Atam Jine, Sagal Vastake. Amar Ji saying that everything will be then under their control. Their calm, their krodh, their lobh, their moh, and their hankar. So what we want to do today is, I'm going to try and focus on the life of someone that truly fell in love with Guru Sahib Ji. That truly fell in love with this path of Sikhi. That truly fell in love with Guru Granth Sahib Ji, with the Bani, with the Gursikhs, with the Khalsa Panth. That truly lived up to Jaao har rang lago is jog mein hai. So kahiyat hai surah, that was a true warrior because he didn't listen to his mind that was racing. He didn't let those challenges around him bring him down. He went past those challenges and he still embraced Maharaj Ji Sache Paatshah Ji. After the time of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Paatshah Ji, after that time when Banda Singh Bahadur, after that time when Banda Singh Bahadur Ji became Shaheed, there was many challenges that came upon the Sikh. There's many challenges that the Panth, that the Khalsa Panth had to face. There's many Gursikhs that were starting to live in jungles. But those Gursikhs, they were still in Chardi Kala. And they didn't waver, and they didn't give up their faith. Amongst them, there's a child by the name of Sukha. He's 12 years of age, and this child, his parents marry him off at a very early age. His name is Sukha, and the village that he lives in, it's a tradition there, and they marry off their children very early, only 12 years of age, and they've married him off. But even though they've married him off, as he would go out to work, he'd start hearing stories of things and how brave they are. He'd hear the glory of Guru Sahiban, of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Paatshah Ji. He'd hear people telling him stories about Baba Ajit Singh Ji. He'd hear about great Gursikhs, and then somebody told him about Pai Mani Singh. They said there's a great Gursikh by the name of Pai Mani Singh, who is the Granthi at Sri Harmandir Sahib. And is bacche de man vich cha upajaya. And in this heart of this child, this yearning welled up to embrace Sikhi himself. He heard that Kalgitar Sache Paatshah Ji, there was a time in 1699 when Kalgitar Sache Paatshah Ji stood on a stage and asked for a cease and asked for a head. Satguru aage cease bhet deo, je Satguru Sache Bhave. Satguru Ji Sache Paatshah Ji's Bani is saying that Satguru aage cease bhet deo. Now what is it that pleases Guru Sahib Ji? What is Guru Sahib Ji asking from us? That Satguru aage cease bhet deo, to give your cease, to give your head to Guru Sahib Ji. He heard about how Guru Sahib Ji took off the heads of Bhai Ram and made him into Bhai Daya Singh. When he's hearing all these stories, and he's 12 years old and he's thinking, I want some of this Amrit. And he's thinking, I want this Amrit that makes you really become alive. that can completely reform you. So he travels and he reaches Sri Amritsar and he goes to Sri Harmandir Sahib. He does namaskar and he goes to see Pai Mani Singh, who was the head Granthi of Sri Harmandir Sahib at that time. And this child, 12 years old, is beinti to Pai Mani Singh. And he said, Pai Sahib, he said, I want to take Khande Bhatte da Amrit. And Pai Mani Singh Ji, upon his beinti, upon his request, this child, Pai Sahib Ji, Khande Bhatte da Amrit tiyar kita. तो उस बच्चे ने जिसका नाम सुखा करके लिखा आया अपने इतिहास विच, उत्थे ओह अमृत छक के भाई सुखा सिंह बनिया. He took Khande Bhatte da Amrit, embraced, and then Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Paatshah Ji, he embraced Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji as his father, Mata Sahib Kaur as his mother. Anandpuri da Vasi ban gaya. He comes back home with Jaao. But as he's going back home, he starts to think, he says, my parents might not agree with what I've done. My parents might be completely against the step that I've taken. because obviously they Hindu घराने दे सगे, they're from a Hindu family. तरखाना दा काम करदे सीगे, लक्कड़ दा इन्हां दा काम सीगा, गरीब परिवार सीगा. There's so much poverty in their house, and they was from a background, from a family of woodworkers and of carpenters, and he's thinking now that, you know what, it'll probably be best that I don't go back home straight away. Because his gears, he's not going to cut his gears now, he's going to grow his gears out, he's going to be wearing a beautiful dastar, and he's thinking, say if my family don't accept me. So then he finds out, and he goes and joins and starts to stay with some Gursikhs and some Singhs. ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਆਪਣੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਸਣ ਲਾਏ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਜੰਗਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਭਾਈ ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਹਿਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ. ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ some ਸੰਗਤ, when they found out, people from his village, they saw that that's that child from our village, he's kept his case, it looks like he's become a Singh. He's brought shame upon his family. So these Jogal Kaur, what they went and did, people love to gossip. So they've gone back to his family, gone back to his house. They've told his family, they said to his family, they said, your little child, your little boy, that Sukha, he's gone and he's staying with the Singhs now. He's gone and taken Amrit from Bhai Mani Singh, from Panth Pyare, and he's kept his case and he keeps a star now. And his parents think, ki unhe kar liya? He's thinking, what's he gone and done? So they're thinking, you know what? We need to somehow make an excuse and bring him back home. We need to get him away from those things that he's staying with. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਹਾਨਾ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਨਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੰਗਲੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ, we've already got him engaged anyway, and we'll just say to him that we need to go now and actually marry him off and bring his wife home now. So they come to the Jatha, and they say to the Singhs, they said, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੂੰ, we're going to take our son back home, and then he can come back. ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਨਾ ਲਿਆ. They said to the son, 13 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਉਮਰ ਹੈ, is about 13 years old, they said, you know what, just need to come for a little while, and then if this is what you want to do, that's fine, then you can come back here, we don't mind. So ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਘਰ ਵਾਪਸ ਲੈ ਆਏ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ. They brought him back home, and they're thinking that what are we meant to do? We don't want him to go out and live like this and live in this way. So they start saying to him, they said, ਪੁੱਤਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਤੂੰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਾਦਸ਼ਾਹੀਆਂ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਨੇ. That the things that you're staying with, they went ਬਾਦਸ਼ਾਹੀਆਂ. Basically they want to take on, they want to rule. They're not afraid of anyone. We've heard that all they do is they get into battles all the time, and so many of them have died. So many of them become shaheed, that we're afraid that the same is going to happen to you. That we're not that way inclined. We're from a poor background, we're simple people, we go out and do our work, but Tumi bus just go out and do your work. Once they brought him home, they started doing galla like this to him. And they're thinking that, how should we bring him, how should we break him from his Sikhi? And ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ, they thought that ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ that ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੋਹਰ ਕੀ ਆ? What's the first thing that they embrace? What's the most precious thing to them? And they thought, if we can take the most precious thing away from him, what makes him into a sect, maybe because it's early days yet, and he might not return back to that life, and he might come to his senses. So they're thinking, they said, you know what we'll do? ਇਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਨਾ, ਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਭੰਗੂ ਪ੍ਰਾਚੀਨ ਪੰਥ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਨੇ. Ratan Singh Pangu writes that what his parents did was they decided, they said, you know what, we'll give him a bit of nasha, we'll intoxicate him so that he's completely out of it. And when he's asleep at night and he's got no sorti and he's completely unconscious, what we'll do is we'll cut his case off. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਕੇਸ ਕੱਟ ਦੂੰਗੇ ਸੁੱਤੇ ਪਏ ਦੇ. ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹੋ ਸਲਾਹ ਕੀਤੀ, ਸਲਾਹ ਬਣਾਈ. ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੁੱਤ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਪਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਲਾਹ ਦਿੱਤਾ. ਜਦੋਂ ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਭੰਗੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਨੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੁੱਤੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਐਨ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਐਨ ਸੁੱਤਾ ਪਿਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਚੜਿਆ ਆ, ਤੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦੇ ਪੇਚ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਖੋਲ੍ਹੇ. ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਵੈਸੇ ਰਹਿਤਨਾਮਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਆਖਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੰਗਾ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਵਕਤ ਕਰ, ਪਾਗ ਚੁਣੀ ਕਰ ਬੰਨ੍ਹਦੀ. And this is the bachan, this is the hukam of Guru Sahib Ji. It says in the Raatname, it says in the Raatname that Kanga dono waqt kar, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਉਹ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੋ ਵਕਤ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੰਘਾ ਫੇਰਦਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇੱਕ ਸਵੇਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਵੇਲੇ. In the morning, a Gursikh takes a kanga, that lakkad da kanga, the wooden comb, and they comb their hair in the morning and in the evening. Dono waqt kanga kar pag, the star, our turban. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਾਗ ਚੁਣੀ ਕਰ ਬਾਂਦੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚੁਣ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਲੜ ਕਰਕੇ ਰੋਜ਼. And they say that a Gursikh, then they each lard that they take and they tie every day. Satguru Ji Sache Paatshah Ji's Raatname say, and they take their son's dastar off his head. ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਲਾਈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਕੇਸ ਕੱਟ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ. ਉਹ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਸਨ ਕਿ ਸਵੇਰ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਠੂਗਾ ਤੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਸ਼ ਆਊਗੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਐਵੇਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਗਵਾਉਣਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਚੜ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ, ਇਹਨੇ ਕੇਸ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲਏ ਨੇ. They've cut off his case, Gursikh Pyaro. When he wakes up in the morning, ਜਦੋਂ ਹੋਸ਼ ਆਈ ਨਾ ਭਾਈ ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੂੰ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੇਖੇ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਤਾਂ ਲੱਥੀ ਪਈ ਆ, ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਈ ਆ ਕੋਲ, ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਹੱਥ ਫੇਰਿਆ ਨਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਿਰ ਉੱਪਰ ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੇਸ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਧਾਵਾ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਰੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ. And he burst out crying and he's thinking, where's my case gone? Then you realize that his parents were trying to talk him out of going back and remaining with the Gursikhs and being a Singh, and he thought that it must have been our parents that have cut my case off. Awaz mari pai Sukha Singh ne apne maa piyo nu. He calls out to his mother and father. Hun dekho, how was it that he got into that position in the first place? He's from a Hindu gharana, but remember, jede bhi udo Sikh bande se, they were all from Hindu households anyway. So this was nothing new, because this is what used to happen in those days anyway. So it's nothing out of the ordinary that those people that born in Hindu families that actually became Sikh anyway. And he's thinking that what have my parents done? He's called his parents and he's saying first that in his mind he just felt this rage. And he's thinking, Akiti, what have you done? When he said this to them, why did you do this to me? What have you done? And they said, Shad tu ki hai, main Sikhi lai baitha hai. He goes, forget this Sikhi thing that you're on about. And they said, and he said, you know what? If you're not going to let me live as a Singh, if you're not going to let me keep my case, if you're going to keep doing this to me, he goes, then I'm better off dead without my case. He goes, I'd rather not breathe anymore. I'd rather not have a life anymore if you're not going to let me keep my case. Bhai Sukha Singh apne maapiyo nu ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੇਸ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖਣ ਦੇਣੇ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਜੀਉ ਕੇ ਹੀ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ. Then what am I going to do remaining alive? Then Bhai Sukha Singh ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰੋਂ ਦੌੜੇ. He starts to run from his house. ਉਹ ਦੌੜਦੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਦਾ ਖੂਹ ਸੀ ਨਾ, and then the well that was in their village, Bhai Sukha Singh ਨੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਖੂਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਾਲ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ. And that Bhai Sukha Singh, he runs, and as he's running, he jumps into this well. The पानी पर डूंगा नहीं सिगा, सच्चे पातशाह दी कोई कुदरती खेड़ सी, but that water wasn't deep in that well. As he's fallen in, and his head is still above that water. ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੁਣ ਡੁੱਬ ਕੇ ਮਰ ਜਾਵਾਂ, that I'm going to put my head into this water as well because I don't want to live anymore, because he couldn't take the pain of them taking his case away. And some of us that are sitting here, ਉਹ ਕਈਆਂ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਵੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ. Sometimes we might be sitting here and we've got a thought within our mind that's very extreme, what his parents have actually done to him. And some of us might be actually thinking that what his parents have done to him, it's probably because he's changed his faith. It's not that he's changed his faith, because they didn't even follow our faith anyway for him to change a faith. And like I said, it was very normal in those days for many people to embrace Gursikhi. But his parents felt ashamed that he's wearing a dastar. His parents felt ashamed that he's got case now. And some of us are thinking, well, that's quite an extreme example, and we're thinking that how can somebody actually do that? But Gursikh Pyareo, the truth is, ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵੀ ਆਹ ਕੁਝ, if not exactly to that point, but ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ. But these type of things happen today as well. Maybe not to that extent, where parents or somebody might actually go and cut their child's hair off. I can share with you some of our own experiences. You know, when we do Sikhi camps, Sanhun camp, being involved in kids and children's Sikhi camps, probably about 8-9 years now. And one of the biggest challenges that we end up having at these camps is what? Is not inspiring the children. That's not the challenge. Inspiring the children is not a problem. The problem comes most of the time now in camps when a child gets inspired to want to embrace Sikhi, is those children going and convincing their parents that they want to embrace Sikhi. That's the biggest problem today. Sadhe naal pyareo, we're thinking that we're talking about Bhai Sukha Singh and this happened 300 years ago, and we're thinking, how can we relate to that? We did a camp, it was only about 3 years ago, and what we would do is we'd sometimes send the kids off in little groups, and we'd say to the kids that what we want you to do is, and there was a child there, and he was about 8 years old, and we said, make a list of what you want to do in your life to improve your Sikhi. Make a list of something bad or negative that you want to give up, and then list something positive that you want to do in your life. So, and then what we do is we get them all to come and present that to everyone. And whatever they are struggling with, they want to try and give up. And you know, kids, a lot of them come back with things like, I fight with my siblings too much, I get angry, I don't share with them. And they all come back with things like this, and they said, and then everybody collectively will give them ideas of how to try and counteract that and how to try and improve on that and not fighting with their brothers and sisters. And this one kid, he came up and he said, one of the things that I want to improve on and that I want to do, he said, I want to keep my gaze. He's about 8 years old, he's a munna. As soon as he said this, he burst out crying. And we said, what are you crying for? We said, it's okay. And we said, that's easy. We go, all you have to do is just don't cut your gaze and they'll grow, if that's what you want to do. And he said, no, that's not the problem. He goes, I know that that's all I have to do. He goes, we had a camp here last year as well. He goes, after last year's camp, he goes, I went home. He goes, I was so excited. Because after being in such positive energy, positive sangat, because I went home, he goes, I told my mum, he said, Mum, I don't want to go to the barbers anymore. He said, I told my mum, I don't want to cut my case anymore. He goes, I was so happy and I thought she'd be happy as well. And he said, but my mum turned around and said, no way are you going to stop cutting your case. You think I've got time for that? You think I've got time to look after your case and comb your hair every morning before taking you to school? And she says, he said, Mum, I learned that from the camp you send me to. But a lot of parents, they send their children to camps because they might want to learn something but not actually take something on. So his mom said to him, she said, there's no way you're going to get out of going to the barbers. And this is from a Sikh family. This is just one story, this is one experience that we're sharing with you. And if we look at this now, and his mum, we said, and then we thought the issue a lot of the times here is now a lot of parents actually accepting. And I remember when we went to Amsterdam to do a camp once, and there was a child in the camp, and the child, he decided, and he said, you know what? He said that he was in his teens, so he was probably about 13 years old. And after being at the Sikhi camp, and he decided, and he said, you know what, that I don't want to eat meat and stuff anymore. So he said that he became a vegetarian for a while. And then he said, but it was so difficult to maintain that. He goes, because my parents wouldn't support me. He goes, my parents would say that you expect us to make separate food for you. You expect us to make now a separate dish for you. If we're only making meat on that day, then what are we meant to do for you? That you either start learning and cooking for yourself. And he's like, I'm 13 years old, I've got my education and everything to do as well. How do you expect me to cook dal sabji every day on my own? And as we said to him, we go, you know, would your dad be willing to come to the Gurdwara and talk to us? Because we thought, we thought it's probably those type of parents that don't enter the Gurdwara themselves and aren't interested at all. And I said, so can you maybe arrange a meeting? Would he accept to come to the Gurdwara? And he said, yeah. He goes, my dad's here, he's in the committee. And this is the halat today, and this is only a few years ago when, like I said, we did a Sikhi camp in Amsterdam. And Maharaj Satguru, these are the problems that we now face. And this isn't about just Sukha Singh 300 years ago. By Sukha Singh, he's in that well, and the villagers heard that somebody has jumped into that well. Because it was a used well, because that's how people got their water in those days. ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਮਾਰੀ, because ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਦਲੇਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, they know that these Singhs, these Sikh are brave. So ਉਹਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਰੱਸੀ ਲਿਆਂਦੀ, a ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ brought a ਰੱਸੀ, and he's put the ਰੱਸੀ down the well, and he's climbed down himself, and he's joined by Sukha Singh in the well at the bottom. Sukha Singh ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਰਹਿਣ ਦਿਓ, leave me, ਮੈਂ ਮਰ ਜਾਣਾ. He goes, I'm going to kill myself. He goes, there's no point, my parents won't let me keep my kids, my parents won't let me live in peace. And ਉਹ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਾਲਾ, ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਵਾਲਾ, ਉਹਨੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਭਾਈ ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਮੋਢੇ ਤੇ, ਹੱਲੇ ਜਵਾਨ ਉਮਰ ਹੈ, 13-14 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਹੈ. He's saying, ਸੁਣ ਭਾਈ, he goes, ਤੂੰ ਡੁੱਬ ਕੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਮਾਰਨਾ ਆ? He goes, ਜੋ ਤੂੰ ਮਰਨਾ ਆ, ਕਬੀਰ ਐਸੀ ਮਰਨੀ ਜੋ ਮਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਨਾ ਮਰਨਾ ਹੋਏ. He goes, ਤੂੰ ਇਹੋ ਜੀ ਮੌਤ ਮਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਕਦੀ ਮਰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਊਗਾ. He goes, why don't you die such a death where you don't have to die ever again? ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੂੰ ਪੰਥ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮਰ. He goes, ਤੂੰ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਮਰ. He goes, ਤੂੰ ਜੂਝਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਮਰ. He goes, die on the battlefield. Why don't you become a martyr? Why don't you die for righteousness? Why don't you die for a good cause? Why are you going to drown here in this pani? ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਨੇ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਨਾ? He goes, ਤੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆ ਕੇ ਰਹਿ. And he goes, you stay with us, you keep your case and you do whatever you want. And Gursikh Pyareo, like I'm saying, there's times that these challenges come sometimes from our own families. When our own families don't actually let us move forward and go forward and actually embrace this path of truth. And this isn't just like I said, and Bhagt Namadev ji talk about this happening in their life as well. The Bhagt Namadev ji ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੁਦਨ ਕਰੇ ਨਾਮੇ ਕੀ ਮਾਈ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭਗਤ ਨਾਮਦੇਵ ਜੀ said, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਈ. Why? Because Bhakt Namadev ji was captured by the ruler of that time. And they were saying to Bhakt Namadev ji, show us a miracle, because we've heard that you're a godly person. That we've heard that you're very religious and people come and actually bow their head down at you. So they captured Bhakt Namadev ji. And they're saying, the rulers of that time are saying to Bhakt Namadev ji, they said, "Kende gaas sanu jiundi karke de." They said, we want you to bring this dead cow back to life. And Bhakt Namadev ji, they're saying, if you're not going to show us a miracle, they said, then give up your faith. And they said, and chant God's name in the way we chant God's name. They said, embrace our faith. And Bhakt Namadev ji's mother starts to freak out. And she's thinking that, well, if my son's life, je bachdiya. And they said, if you don't listen to us, if you don't show us a miracle, or if you don't change your faith, if you don't embrace Islam, they said, we're going to let an intoxicated elephant loose on you. And we're going to tie you up and we're going to make it trample all over you. And Bhakt Namadev ji write all of this in their own words. And they said, as soon as his mother heard that they're going to tie him up and let an elephant loose on him, he says, Rudan kare name ki mai. He said, my mother started to cry. And she said, Shad Ram, Shod Ram. She goes, why don't you just forget this Ram that you keep saying? Why don't you just forget this, whatever you're doing, this way that you're living, whatever you're chanting or whatever you're doing? She said, Shod Ram, Kina Padhe Khudaye. She says, why don't you just Padhe Khudaye? Why don't you just meditate on their God? Even though there's one God. But meaning that, why don't you just do what they say? If they're saying embrace their faith, you just want to believe in God, don't you? So why don't you just do it their way? She goes, Shad para tu ani tu jindagi apni tu gwauni hai. Why are you going to waste your life for like this? And Bhakt Namadev ji, as soon as they heard these words, and Bhakt Namadev ji's mum is wailing out to everyone around her, and she's saying, let go of my son. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's gone crazy. He'll be fine. He'll do as you say. Just let go of him. Don't let this elephant come and trample all over him. Whatever you want him to recite, he'll recite it. He'll be fine. As soon as Bhakt Namadev ji heard this, he says, Naao Thaeraa pungda, na tu meri mai. Bhakt Namadev ji said, Naao Thaeraa pungda. He said, I'm not your son then. Naao Thaeraa pungda, na tu meri mai. Then you're not my mother then. He says फेनी तू मेरी मां लगदी because ना फेनी मैं तेरा पुੱਤ लगदा जे तू मैनू कहनी है ना मेरा धर्म छड्ड दे because मैं धर्म नू नहीं छड्ड सकदा and that's why भगत कबीर जी say as well भगत कबीर जी दे बचन ने कहंदे दीन गवाया दुनी सियों दुनी ना चाली साथ कहंदे पाए कुहाड़ा मारिया गाफल अपने हाथ भगत कबीर जी saying what we end up doing in this life sometimes he's saying deen gawaya duni syon because of the people of this world because of our friends because of the people that we associate with what do we end up doing deen gawaya we end up losing our faith we end up giving up our faith and then Bhagavad Kabir ji saying that duni na chali saath that world that you are trying to impress those people that you are trying to impress they said they're not going to stand by you they're not going to go with you they're not going to be able to hold your hand at that time when you really need them that's why Guru Tegh Bahadur ji Sache Paatshah ji say as well they say that sukh mein bahut sangi pe dukh mein sang na koi but Guru Tegh Bahadur ji Sache Paatshah ji say these words as well they say that sukh mein bahut sangi pe when you're going through a good phase in your life everybody wants to be your friend everybody wants to join you they say that dukh mein sang na koi they said but when you're really going through a difficult time nobody really stands next to you they might be there for a little while but it's not very long after a very short time they'll get fed up and they'll back off they'll think I can't deal with this that's why Guru Sahib ji say as well they say jis manuk pe karo benati so apne dukh bharya they said you going and you asking those people for help that haven't been able to help themselves so apne dukh bharya they're full of their own suffering they're full of their own pain so much they're not being able to get of their own problems and you're going and crying to them and that's why Bhagat Fareed ji said as well he says uche chad ke dekhya ta ghar ghar eho ag Bhagat Fareed ji said they said when I got onto the rooftop he said I saw that this fire is on in each and every household baro kei wari theek lagde hunde a but when we open those doors and we go inside but most people in this world are suffering most people in this world are going through something there's something or another going on in somebody's household where there's issues where they're going through a difficult time where they find it difficult to get on with each other and their families nowadays it's becoming so predominant that it's within weeks nowadays where the couple have got married they've moved in the end with their in-laws and just within days they're saying I can't bear this I can't tolerate this let's find another house let's move out and I'm not sitting here dictating to you I'm amongst that I'm a part of that I'm talking from my own experiences as well Bhagat Namadev ji is saying that Naao tera poongda na tu meri maaye pind pade to har gun gaye he said mom because the truth is pind pade because even if I lose my body because I'm willing to lose my body he goes but I'm not going to stop singing the praises of Akalpur because I'm not going to give up my path I'm not going to give up this way of life that's why Kabir ji is saying that deen gawaya duni siyon duni na chali saath because for those people that you're holding yourself back to embrace that path of truth kande pae ko hara marya they said it's like hitting an axe on your own foot kande jive kande apne pair te kande insaan ko hara maar lenda ya it's like chopping off your own foot with your own hand and taking that axe pae ko hara marya gafal apne haath they said that fool takes an axe and chops his own foot off meaning that they chop off that foot that takes them to that path of truth and now think about this pyareo Guru Kalgitar Sache Paatshah ji as well they said to us that these bachan are recorded and Maharaj ji Sache Paatshah ji said to us it says nishan Sikhi e panj Kalgitar Sache Paatshah ji de bachan ne Farsi de vich Maharaj Sache Paatshah ji ne ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕੀਤਾ Maharaj ji ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ what's the symbol what's the sign of Sikhi Maharaj ji said ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ Sikhi e ਕਹਿੰਦੇ it's these what ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ Sikhi e ਪੰਜ these five ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹ ਪੰਜ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ Sikhi e ਪੰਜ harf ਕਾਫ harf means letters ਕਾਫ means they all begin these five begin with K akka harf ਕਾਫ ਕੜਾ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਕੱਚ ਕੰਗਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੜਾ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹ ਪੰਜ ਨੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੀਆਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੜਾ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਤੋਂ ਭਾਵ ਕਿਰਪਾਨ the sword ਕੜਾ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਕੱਚ ਭਾਵ ਕਛਹਿਰਾ ਕੜਾ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਕੱਚ ਕੰਗਾ कंगा भी सारे नूं पता, कंगा जिहड़ा अपने केसां विच आपां लईदा, द comb, the wooden comb. So महाराज जी now here कहंदे कड़ा केस कड़ा कर दो कच कंगा, फिर महाराज जी कहंदे बिदा। हुण 4 महाराज ने गिना दिते ते एक छड्ड दिता, पर महाराज ने क्या निशानी 5 ने। महाराज जी saying this 5, but महाराज जी spoke about 4, and then this is bida, and they said bida means 0. बिदा भाव महाराज जी कहते कहते ये जेडे 4 ने जे इकल्ले ने, इफ दे ऑन देयर ओन, जेड़ा कड़ा आ, जेड़ी कृपान आ, ते जेड़ा कंगा आ, ते जेड़ा कछहरा है, महाराज जी कहते ये कल्ले कहते इन्हां दी जेड़ी वैल्यू महाराज जी सेइंग इट्स 0. कहते व्हाट गिव्स दिस 4 वैल्यू, महाराज जी कहने लगे कहते बिला केस हेच, कहते केसां तो बगैर कहते इन्हां दी कहते कोई कीमत नहीं, कहते केस ही कहते दूसरे 4 ककारां नूं कहते कीमत दिंदे हैं। Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji Maharaj Ji's words, Maharaj Ji saying that bila case hate, Maharaj Ji saying that without case these have no value, and Maharaj saying with case they have value. Bhai Sukha Singh, he understood the value of his case. Bhai Sukha Singh, he joined the Singhs and he didn't back off, he did not waver. Just like the Bhagats just did not waver in their life. Bhagat Kabir Ji talk about their own life as well. Bhagat Kabir Ji भी कहते हैं ना, कहते gang gusayan gehar gambir. And Bhagat Kabir Ji is saying in their own bani, कहते that Kabir बांध कर खरे, कहते जंजीर बांध कर खरे Kabir. कहते what happened, कहते the rulers of that time, कहते they chained me up. Kabir Ji ने भी, what for? For the sake of, because he spoke the truth. Why? For the sake of keeping his faith. For the sake of, because he didn't turn his back on Akal Purkh, on his Guru. He says that Jajir Bandh Kar Khare Kabir. He said that they chained me up with chains. And he goes, what did they do? They took me into that deep Ganga. He goes, where the Ganges is flowing. He goes, they threw me into the Ganges. Why did they throw me into the Ganges? He goes, because they wanted to say to the world that this Ganga Ma, because they call the Ganges the mother, that this mother ate up your child. Kende gang gasayan gehar kabir, kende janjeer bandh kar khare kabir. And they've taken Bhagat Kabir Ji to throw him away. But he says, man na dege, tan kahe ko daraye. He said, you know what? You're trying to put fear inside of me. You're trying to say that you're going to drown me so that I can give up my faith. He said, but the truth is, he goes, my mind is solid. My mind isn't wavering. My mind isn't afraid of what you are doing to me. Man na dege. Because tan kahe ko daraye. He goes, why are you putting fear through my body when my mind is stable? Because it's my mind that you need to get to. He goes, man na dege tan kahe ko daraye. Charan kamal chit Rehaao samaye. Because my mind is still stable and completely focused and absorbed in the charan, in the feet of Akal Purkh Vaheguru Ji. And as they throw Bhagat Kabir Ji into that Ganges, into that flowing river, into that water, and they're expecting and then seeing, now they're waiting to see Bhagat Kabir Ji drown because he's tied up in chains. तो उन्होंने जिवें भगत कबीर जी नूं उस गंगा दे विच सिੱਟਿਆ तो सोचण लगे कि हुण भी डुबदा वो उਡੀक करदे ने कि भगत कबीर जी डुबणगे तो भगत कबीर जी कहण लगे कहंदे गंगा की लहर मेरी टुटी जंजीर कहंदे गंगा की लहर कहंदी भगत कबीर जी said such a wave came in the Ganges कहंदे गंगा की लहर मेरी टुटी जंजीर कहंदे those chains that I was tied with कहंदे they all broke and they came and I became free कहंदे मिर्ग छाला कर बैठे कबीर कहंदे and then he said I had my legs crossed and I was sitting in that water, in that Ganges. He said, just like somebody would sit on a deer skin and sit and meditate. And he was saying, I was sitting on the Ganga meditating and I wasn't drowning at all. कहते कहे कबीर को संग ना साथ भगत कबीर जी कहने लगे कहते देखो कहते मैनू आया कोई बचाउण वास्ते कहते भगत कबीर जी कहते देख लो कहते इस संसार दा कहते कोई नहीं मैनू बचा सकिया कहते पर वो एक वाहिगुरू जी अकाल पुरख कहते उन्होंने मैनू बचा लिया जाल थल राखन है रघुनाथ कहते that वाहिगुरू जी saves me even on the earth jal even in the water जाल थल राखन है रघुनाथ he saved me even in this Ganges in this flowing water in this river कहता उन्हें मैनू रखिया ना उन्हें मेरी रखिया कीती ना And that's why Satguru Ji Sache Paatshah Singh je maat pita sut meet na bhai man uha naam tere sang sahai. Sache Paatshah Ji saying that Akal Purkh will be there for us in those places. In that place when we haven't even got a body left. When we have to, Maharaj Ji say that next year fook ho gyo swa. When we become ashes, when we just become a teri of ashes, Maharaj Ji Sache Paatshah saying that next year fook, when the breath leaves this body and it doesn't return again, then we'll just be a pile of dust. That's all we'll be. Maharaj Ji says that itna kende kaha bisasa is pande ka itna ka lage thanka. Maharaj Ji says we don't know about this. We don't know when this vessel is going to break. ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਇਸ ਭਾਂਡੇ ਨੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਟੁੱਟ ਜਾਣਾ ਆ ਇਹ ਸਰੀਰ ਰੂਪ ਭਾਂਡੇ ਨੇ we don't know when this vessel this body is going to break meaning it's going to come to an end ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਭਰੋਸਾ ਆ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ is saying that why don't you become friends with that one that will be here for us here as well but we will with us there as well when we leave this sareer as well when we leave this body as well when nobody can accompany us because Maharaj Ji says shad khadote khine mahe Jinsio laga het. Maharaj saying that you left them standing behind. Those people that used to say to you, koi nahi, kuch nahi hunda, baja, tu aimi dari jana, tu lala glasi. It's alright, don't worry. What are you afraid for? Why are you worried about what people are going to say? Why you just crack open that bottle. Just crack open that bottle of Jack Daniels, that bottle of Bacardi. And Maharaj is saying, but now you might think and not have any thought in your mind. But Maharaj is saying, but now for the sake of those actions, this is Shad Kharote, a day is going to come when you leave everyone standing behind you. Shad Kharote, unhone khade reh jana, jinsio laga het, those people that you were so attached to, those people that affected you so much and brought you down. And then Guru Sahib Ji saying that you're not going to be able to then pick up the phone and say, I'm here, come and save me. And they didn't literally say that. But Maharaj Ji saying, fe othe tu kenu dasunga. Maharaj Ji saying, jit din dehe bin sasi, tit vele kehsan preet, kende that day, kende that this body leaves. When this body becomes dust, maaf karna. Kende Maharaj Ji kehne lage, kende jab hi hans taji e kaya preet kar bhagi. Kende when the hans, when that dove inside of us, when it leaves this body, when our soul leaves this body, people are going to just call you a dead body. They're not even refer to you as your name. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿਤ ਦਿਨ ਦੇਹ ਬਿਨ ਸਸੀ ਤਿਤ ਵਹਿਲੇ ਪ੍ਰਹਸਨ ਖੇਤ ਛੱਡ ਖੜੋਤੇ ਖਿਨੇ ਮਾਏ ਜਿਨਸਿਓ ਲੱਗਾ ਹੇਤ ਹੱਥ ਮਰੋੜੇ ਤਨ ਕੱਪੇ ਸਿਆਹੋ ਹੋਆ ਸੇਤ ਤਾਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ saying that but if you embraced your guru here Maharaj Ji Sache Paatshah Bhai Nand Lal Ji had so much faith in Guru Sahib Ji. They said that Bardo Alam Shah Guru Gobind Singh. They said Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Paatshah Ji is the king of two worlds. They said this world and in the world after. If we today give our hand, if we hold on to Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Paatshah Ji's arm in this life, then when we leave this body, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji will hold on to our arm when we leave this body. There will be somebody waiting for us. Gursikh Pyareo, if we look at our itihas, that Bhai Sukha Singh is that Bhai Sukha Singh that then accompanied by Mehtab Singh. These are the stories that we should be telling our children. This is how we should be bringing up our children, telling them the stories of our Shaheeds and telling of this unwavering faith and prem and love that people like Bhai Sukha Singh had. They were willing to die, but they didn't want their case cut. Pyare, when Sant Kartar Singh Khalsa Pindra wale Mahapurkh ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਗੁਰਬਚਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਕਰਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਭਿੰਡਰਾ ਵਾਲੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀਵਾਨ ਚੋਂ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਹਟੇ ਨੇ when they finished doing katha in a ਦਰਬਾਰ ਅਨ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਥਾ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਸ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਦੀਵਾਨ ਵੀ ਹੁਣੀ ਲਿਖ ਲਓ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਡਾਇਰੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੁਣੀ ਲਿਖਾ ਦਿਓ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਗਾ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਅਣਸੁਣੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਪਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਹੋ ਗਏ they did ਬੇਨਤੀ where Baba Kartar Singh, Sant Kartar Singh had finished doing katha And they said to Sant Kartar Singh, they said, give us and write in your diary the next year's program as well. And Sant Kartar Singh ji didn't reply back to them and didn't say anything. And when they said, Baba ji, that they said, give us a diwan, tell your person that does your diary, tell him to write it in then. And Baba ji said a pankti. And this is Nadi Vichunne Ram, they refer to this pankti about a flowing river and not knowing if that flowing river is going to pass through that direction ever again. Unhone ishara kar ditta Mahapurkha ne, meaning that you don't know if that river is going to ever return again from the same place. And they didn't understand what Babaji was saying, what Mahapurkhas jo sant unhanu keh ki rahe san, they didn't understand. And when Babaji came to sit in the car, when Mahapurkh Sant Kartar Singh, Yani Sant Kartar Singh came to sit in the car, ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਮਿਲੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਭਾਈ ਜਰਨੈਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਵਾਲੇ ਆ, everybody knows them as Nitnem wale, and I'm sure there's many of you sitting here as well that probably listen to the Nitnem that Bhai Jarnail Singh has done. But Bhai Jarnail Singh ji used to actually do Path, and he used to read the Bani when the Sant Jarnail Singh ji used to do Katha. Bhai Jarnail Singh ji used to actually read the Bani when Sant Kartar Singh ji used to do Katha as well. ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸੰਤ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 10-10 12-12 ਕਥਾ ਦਿਹਾੜੀ ਦੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਨ. Sometimes they'll do 10-12 diwans in one day, Sant Kartar Singh ji would. ਤਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਆ ਕੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਨੇ, and instead of sitting in their normal seat, they turned around to their ਗੜਵਈ, to their ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ, ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਸਿਓ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅੱਜ. And they're thinking, and their ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ, the ਗੜਵਈ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖੋ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ how can I ever sit in the place that you sit? He said, I'm not worthy to be sitting in your place. He said to Babaji, he goes, I can't come and sit in there. ਤਾਂ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਸਿਓ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਚਨ ਮੰਨ. ਤੀਜੀ ਵਾਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੇਰੇ ਮਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਝੱਲਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣਾ, ਤੂੰ ਇੱਧਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾ. Baba Sant Kartar Singh turned around and said to Gurmukh Singh, your mum won't be able to tolerate. Just come and sit on this side. And he's like, he doesn't get what Babaji is saying, what Sant is saying. ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੋਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੈ ਤੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੇ, ਤੂੰ ਬਚਨ ਮਾਨੀ ਇੱਧਰ ਆ ਜਾ ਬਹਿ ਜਾ ਤੂੰ. They said, your mom's going to cry, come and sit here. They swapped seats. Bhai Gurmukh Singh came and sat in the seat there where Babaji, where Sant Kartar Singh ji would normally sit. And as they're travelling in that car, there's a few cars behind them as well. The raste vich en route as they are travelling, that car that Sant Kartar Singh ji huni was sitting in, that car then had an accident. ਉਸ ਗੱਡੀ ਦਾ ਐਕਸੀਡੈਂਟ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ. ਤਾਂ ਜਿਸ ਪਾਸੇ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖ ਬੈਠੇ ਸਨ ਉਸ ਪਾਸੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੋਇਆ. And the side the Mahapurkh was sitting on, and Babaji was very heavily wounded and they were very hurt from the accident. But the Gurmukh Singh, that the Sevadar that they asked to sit on their side, he was untouched and he was unscratched. Mahapurkha ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ, when Sant Kartar Singh ji hone are sitting, lying on the bed in the hospital, and they looked at their condition, and the condition was deteriorating, and the doctor said that, well, we need to attempt some sort of operation that they needed to do. And they explained to Sant Kartar Singh that they need to operate on them, and before operating, before they cut into them, that they need to actually shave off and cut off some of their gas from their body. And they said Sant Kartar Singh ji at that time, they could not speak because they were so badly hurt. But with their hand, Sant Kartar Singh ji just nodded their head and they went like this around their neck. And they explained to the Gursikhs ishare de naal, kehne sikho e doctoran nu samjha do. They somehow very quietly explained that, tell them that they can cut my neck off, but tell them not to touch my case. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਦਿਓ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਲਾਉਣ, ਗਲਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਵੱਢ ਦੇਣ. ਐਂਡ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਦਾ ਸੰਤ ਕਰਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸਨ ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, ਉਹ ਨਾਰਾ ਲਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਿਰ ਜਾਵੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਜਾਵੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਿਦਕ ਨਾ ਜਾਵੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ I'm happy, I'm willing for my head to be cut off, I'm willing for my head to go off. The day Sant Kartar Singh ji started doing Katha, wherever they would go, they would get the Sangat to sing this. Sir jave ta jave, mera Sikhi sidak na jave. They wrote this poem. They wrote this poem for that summer, for that time, whereby Mati Das ji,
when Bhai Mati Das Ji was going to become Shaheed, when they had that ara on top of Bhai Mati Das Ji cease, and Gurbani explained that sama beautifully. Bhakt Kabir Ji write that Karvat Palana Karvat Teri Lag Gale Sun Benti Meri. Bhakt Kabir Ji is writing, and it seems like they're explaining that moment that Bhai Mati Das Ji is about to get Shaheed. And it's saying that Karvat Pala na Karvat Teri. Karvat means soul. Bhakt Kabir Ji's Bani is saying what? Is saying that the soul is pleasing to me. Karvat Pala na Karvat Teri. But what will actually kill me is if you had your back to me. If I did such a thing in my life where you ended up turning your back to me. And this is what we can say to Guru Sahib Ji as well. This is the benti we should be doing now to Guru Sahib Ji Sache Padshah Ji. And often we end up forgetting that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Padshah Ji is present. We all say that Dasa Padshahiyan ki Jot. We all say that कि किसे दे होर अगे मत्था नहीं टेकना. We all say that किसे होर नूं नहीं मनना. We all say that Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Padshah Ji नूं मनना है. But how much do we really do that? Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah Ji, when they were about to leave this world Sareer karke, when they were going to leave in that bodily form from this world, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah Bhai Nand Lal Ji ने बेनती की थी. कहंदे Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah Ji, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਹੋਣ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਚੱਲੇ ਹੋ. Bhai Nand Lal Ji said, if you want to speak to you, who are we meant to speak to? You're about to leave us now. ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah Ji. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji Padshah Ji ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੋ ਮੁਝ ਬਚਨ ਕਰਨ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸੁਣੋ ਚਿਤ ਲਾਏ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Padshah ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਚਾਰਿਓ ਤਾਂ ਸੁਣਿਓ ਚਿਤ ਲਾ ਕੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ if you read Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Padshah Ji's ਬਾਣੀ from your heart, you listen to the words of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Padshah Ji said, you'll feel my presence. You'll feel that I haven't gone anywhere. I'll speak to you through Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Padshah Ji's ਬਾਣੀ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੋ ਮੁਝ ਬਚਨ ਕਰਨ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੇ, ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸੁਣੋ ਚਿਤ ਲਾਏ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਪਨ ਰੂਪ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਜੀ ਜਾਣੋ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ know my form to be Guru Granth Sahib Ji. इसमें भेद ना रंचक मानो. कहते there is no difference, not even a little sesame seeds worth of difference between me and Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Padshah Ji. कहते आपन अंग Guru Granth Sahib Ji Padshah Ji वाला इशारा करके they faced towards Guru Granth Sahib Ji and they said आपन अंग मेरे कर जानो. And they said no, each limb of Guru Granth Sahib Ji to be the limb of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah. So when we get to embrace, when we're listening to the Bani of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we're speaking to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. When we get to touch the Anga of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we're getting to touch Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah Ji. We're actually getting to embrace Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Padshah Ji. These are their words. Bhakt Kabir Ji is explaining and they're saying, Karvat Pala na Karvat Teri. They're giving us these words. And they're saying, Lag Gale Sun Benti Meri, say to Guru Sahib Ji, that Guru Sahib Ji, embrace me close to you and listen to my benti. My benti is that I'd rather be cut in half, but I don't ever want to see that you've got your back towards me. And how will you have your back towards me? If I do such a gum, if I do those type of actions, if I do those type of things that are against your Sikhi, that's what will make your back come to me. Guru Sikh Pyareo, ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈਏ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ. My ਬੇਨਤੀ is that we all here, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਬੈਠੇ ਹਾਂ, that we make an effort to learn Gurmukhi. And often what we don't get in Gurdwara is we don't normally get to have a conversation. We don't normally get to have a debate. We don't get to have a two-way communication in a Gurdwara. It's normally somebody sits on a stage, they do kirtan, or they sit on a stage, they do Katha, like I've been doing, and everybody's sent home, thank you very much. But that's not how it happened in Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time. In Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time, Guru Nanak Dev, Bhai Gurdas Ji, they give us a description of how it used to happen. This is Gyan goes to Charcha Sada. Kene Charcha hundi si. There were discussions, healthy discussions that used to take place. So if the Sangat doesn't understand anything, they had an opportunity. That's what it means to take an Guru on. It means that whatever doubts and whatever questions we got in our mind, we get the opportunity to clear those questions. Gyan goes to Charcha Sada. And those things, and we think if we start doing something like that today, we think if we sit in Marj's Hajuri today and we start off a healthy discussion and a Q&A session, we think, "Ye ta namiyan gallan karan lag pe hain, ye ta modern ban gaya hun bahut." And people first, when we start doing English Katha, we get people saying, "Tanu sharm nahi aunਦੀ English bolde stage te." Not understanding that Guru Granth Sahib Ji Paatshah's Bani isn't only in Punjabi. Not understanding that there's about 20 plus languages in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Paatshah Ji. That there's Hindi, there's Sanskrit, there's Telugu, there's Bengali, there's Farsi, Arabi de shabd ne vich. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Paatshah is going to Medina and they're speaking to them in their language. They're saying, "Yak arz guftam pesto dar gos kun kartar." Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Paatshah Ji is engaging with them and speaking to them in their language. So today, if Guru Nanak Dev Ji is going to Medina and they're speaking in Farsi, and I'm sure if Guru Nanak Dev Ji was sitting here today, they'll be speaking in English as well. So this is because the lack of understanding. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Paatshah Ji, whatever area that they are in, if you read Gyani Harbhan Singh, he's saying when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Paatshah Ji do unhone kuch chajji bani uchariya, kende oh lehndi bhasha aya. It's from southwest of unbroken Punjab. That language is that the Kuchajji Bani is Ucharan. It's Punjabi but a completely different dialect to what we're used to hearing. Manch Kuchajji Amavan Dosade ho kyo shohravan jaye jiyo. Ek do ek chadhandiyan kaun jane mera nao jiyo. Jini sakhi shohravya se ambi shavdiye jiyo. Se gun manjna avani o keh ji dost rahe jiyo. Eh lehndi bhasha hai. So we've got to now communicate on that level, but that doesn't mean that we don't make that effort to learn Gurmukhi. And ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਦੇ ਅੱਖਰ ਸਿੱਖਣੇ ਨੇ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਉਣੀ ਹੈ. That we make this link and we create this relationship with our Guru. And I'm not sure, but I think Panji did say that to have that we can give Sangat an opportunity as well, that if the Sangat, if anybody has got any questions that they want to ask, and that they actually take up the opportunity to ask anything that they're unsure of, anything Gurmat related. But I'm sure everybody here is aware of our YouTube channel as well. We've probably got close to 2,000 videos on there now. Very well organized, very well divided. And if somebody feels that they want to learn more about Guru Sahiban's life, then there's a playlist called The Travelling Light of Guru Nanak, and you can learn about all the 10 Gurus. If somebody wants to learn what Japji Sahib means, then there's a playlist called the Japji Sahib. All the Panch Baniyan are translated now on our channel. The Rehaao is in the process of going up, which is released every week. And we run an academy as well, which is running in Walsall at the moment. With Marj's Kirpa, we've got 8 students this year that hopefully will graduate and then become pracharaks to continue spreading Guru Nanak Dev Ji Sache Paatshah Ji's Bani. Because Bani is the answer to all our problems. Bani is what will save all of us. And when we start to understand and making that link, so I don't know if anyone here would actually like to go around and send even maybe a piece of paper around, or if anyone has got any questions, and then like I said, please take this opportunity to ask whatever, if somebody's got anything on their mind. And I know some of you may feel a little shy, but don't feel shy. I'm quite chilled out guy. So yeah, Anji. Khalsa.
I'd probably like to ask, is there any tips or anything you can, like as children, we can say to our parents of, say you take the path of Sikhi, how can we relate to them?
Yeah, so I'm sorry I actually went off on a bit of a tangent and I didn't get to clear all my points when we were talking about sometimes parents not understanding, and sometimes it could be the other way around as well. Sometimes it's like the certain children that are at a certain age and they actually don't want their parents to take that path on. So it's not always that way around. So it could be the other way around as well. And the most important thing is that doesn't. So what I do want to say is, please, for no parents to ever feel that they're being put down and that they're actually being looked down upon, that you're wrong and you're bad for doing this, because it's just a lack of understanding. And sometimes it could come to a bit of it could be very shocking when your child wants to actually make a change in their life and you're used to them being in a certain way. And so the child's responsibility, sometimes if the child's a teenager, is never to disrespect their parent and speak to their parents in a disrespectful way, because then we've lost anyway before we've started. Then what is it that we're trying to embrace? Because Maharaji in Gurbani, Maharaji also say that Kahe Poot Chagrat Ho Sang Baab Jinke Jane Budire Tum Ho Tinso Chagrat Paap. Bani vich eh bhi likhya kende apne maa pyo de naal chagdna kende inu paap manniya gaya hai. They said arguing with your parents is an outright sin, Maharaji say. But at the same time, Maharaji is saying don't give up your faith as well. That's why they call Sikhi a fine path. That's why they say the khande di dhar te turna hai. Kende tusi apna dharm bhi nahi chhadna par maa pyo de naal chagdna bhi nahi. You got to find that perfect balance, that how are you going to get around that situation. And a lot of the time, getting around that situation could be showing them that you're not only physically changing your appearance, because a lot of the time that parents can struggle with appearance change as well. I remember I had one of the Singhs that would hang out with us. I had his mum knocking on our door and saying, "Mere tum pot di shakal bigaad ke rakh di thi, inna sona lagda hunda siga," you know. And so obviously you get these situations as well, and the way the child can sometimes get around that parent is when they show them that it's not that they're just changing their appearance, but they're changing their whole being, and even their response is now becoming sweeter. That now they're becoming more uddami meaning they're making more of an effort. They don't have to be told to clean up their room, but now because they get up earlier and do their part, that they just clean their room up. And when they see that, you know what, he doesn't actually speak to me rudely anymore, he doesn't actually answer back to me anymore, you know, arrogantly, and he's actually speaking a lot better. Even though they might not be impressed with the path you've taken, but they won't be able to help but fall for that character that you're becoming now, what we're meant to be becoming when you take that change. And that could be the same in relationships as well with partners. Sometimes there's one partner that comes into Sikhi and the other person isn't ready yet. And again, it's trying to grow on those inner qualities and showing that endurance and that patience, and how you're not argumentative as much as you used to be. And when they start seeing these changes, they just won't be able to help but be impressed. And that itself will become the prachar for your change. And the problem normally comes is when the child comes home with attitude and say that, look, well, I've done something great, I've done something good. It's good that I'm not eating meat anymore. It's good that I'm keeping my case now. So it's you're the one that's wrong. It's when they start taking that attitude and speaking down to them, that's when the clash happens, that's when the problems occur. So it's about both sides trying to understand each other and working with each other. And whoever are in these situations is trying to contact someone that could maybe help them. You've got the Sikh helpline. You know, you can message us on our, you can take basics a Sikhi email. So whoever's struggling with these issues, just try and find someone that can intervene and make that situation better. Now, so if there's
We just wanted to say complete Sukha Singh's history.
Hanji?
Please repeat the Sukha Singh's history of the anesthesia, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to vaguely, not as a katha, but just talk to you as if we're sitting together. And so just in case if there's anyone, those of you that don't actually know, that Bhai Sukha Singh then became very active. And then when the Singhs found out that somebody called Masa Rangar had actually taken over Siri Darbar Sahib, and they had actually उन्होंने सरोवर भी पूर दिता सीगा मिट्टी दे नाल, that they filled the सरोवर of Sri Harmandir Sahib with sand, and he had actually then taken over inside of Sri Harmandir Sahib, and he sat and he placed his own chair where we see Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Paatshah Ji Maharaj Ji sitting today, and he even had women dancing for him inside of Sri Harmandir Sahib. He drank alcohol inside of Sri Harmandir Sahib, Masa Rangat did. And because they thought that, you know what, there's no Sikhs left, ਇਹ ਮਾਰ ਮੁੱਕ ਗਏ ਸਾਰੇ, ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਅੱਧਾ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਜੰਗਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਕਿਤੇ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਵਿਗਾੜਨਾ. And they said that what they meant to be, what they be able to do to us anyway, they're not going to be able to do anything to us. So the Singhs collectively, they had a meeting and they said that who would like to do this carriage, that who would actually like to do this job. And then it was decided by Mehtab Singh and by Sukha Singh actually went and dealt with in whatever method it would take, whatever it would take to take Masarangar out of Sri Harmandir Sahib, to destroy Masarangar, and it was decided that these two Gursikhs would go and do that job. So they both dressed up and they got onto their kore, got onto their horses, and they had bags with them, and which seemed as if they are bags which they called gutle, then filled with money, but they weren't filled with money, and they may have had a bit of money on top of them, but it was their strategy, what they were going to use to go and destroy Masarangar. So when they've come on their horses to Sri Harmandir Sahib, obviously there's guards everywhere, and they said to the guards that we want to go and pay homage, and we want to go and show our respects to Masarangar, to the governor of this area, and we actually want to donate some money to him. These bags are full of coins, in which there was a few coins at the top of the bag. And when these both Gursikh have gone inside to Harmandir Sahib, and when they were in absolute disgust with what they saw happening inside, him sitting there with alcohol, because sometimes when you hear something, but then when you actually see something, it's completely different. And as he's actually quite drunk, and then Bhai Sukha Singh actually goes forward, and he thought that they were about to bow down to him and giving this bag of money. But as Bhai Sukha Singh throws that bag down of money, and as if it's slipping out of his hand, Masarangar goes down to pick that money up, to pick that bag up to see what it is. And as he's put his head down, Bhai Mehtab Singh takes out his Kirpan and Talwar, and with one blow chops and takes off his head of Masarangar. So ਉਹਦਾ ਸਿਰ ਵੱਢ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ, and they put his head, and they actually hung his head on top of a spear. ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਉਸ ਉੱਪਰ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ, they put his head on a spear, got back onto their horses, and they walked out of Harmandir Sahib with his head. And when people were actually watching them and seeing them, all the guards that were there, ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਡਰ ਕੇ ਪਰੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਸਿਰ ਲੈ ਜਾਣ ਨਾਲ. So this was that Bhai Sukha Singh and Bhai Mehtab Singh, and they both, later on in their lives, they both actually became Shaheed, fighting for the Panth. Bhai Mehtab Singh and Bhai Sukha Singh did at separate times, but at that time they actually escaped and got out of there. And that was, so his life was definitely worth living, who actually bought justice and went in there. And today, even though that many of the routes that we take have become more so the route of signing petitions and demonstrating, and that's the route that the Panth have started taking nowadays. But if we read Ratan Singh Pangu and read about people like Bhutta Singh and Garja Singh, it wasn't a petition that they would get signing, but they would actually take the shastra in their hand and then make sure they go and do what they need to do. Because every Gursikh da ek hissa hai, and that's one hissa, that's one part that Guru Sahib Ji has given to us too. So that was in very shorthand by Sukha Singh and by Mehtab Singh Sakha. And like I said, these are the stories that we should be telling our children. Don't be afraid to tell your children these type of stories. You know, we want them to grow up listening to the stories of our Shaheeds, of people like Bhai Fauja Singh, of people like Sant Naal Singh Ji, of these great Gursikhs of that time, Bhai Subeg Singh, Shabaz Singh, and Bhai Subeg Singh that was with Sant Naal Singh Ji. So all these great Gursikhs, and a lot of us when we hear the name of like my Sant Naal Singh Ji, we all get afraid, and we think, and some of us think that, oh, you know, wasn't he a terrorist? But if we read, and I'd actually advise you to watch a video on our channel called Nothing But Compassion, and that's all about the life of Sant Naal Singh Ji, and you'll be shocked how compassionate and how much bhakti Sant Naal Singh Ji had, and how much Mani that they read, and how delicate their heart was. One time when Sant Ji, he had some of the Jatha's money, he had like some of the donations that were given for Taksal, they had at home, and one of their sons, when one of their sons were very young, they went and just picked up one coin, it was one or ek rupaya, and Sant Naal Singh Ji said, oh Pachangiya ki karda hai? Kende eh sadi amanat nahi, kende ekdam rakh de nu thalle. They shouted across the room and they said to their son, he only picked up 1 rupee. They said, put that down right now. He said, that's the Panth's money, that doesn't belong to us. And their little son, he got scared as Sant Ji shouted, and he started to cry. And then, just like Gurbani say, that Kar upadesh chidke pao panti, bahud pita gal lave, and then Sant Ji heart melted when they saw their son crying, and they then embraced him and hugged him and took him to his chest, to their chest as well. So that's just one of many examples of how compassionate and amazing and how delicate Sant Ji's heart was. So if there's any more questions, then you're welcome. Otherwise, we're going to do Samapti now. I'm not sure that if